Hi. I got into a discussion about Ramayan on X with a few people. Thought I would share that here for anyone interested. Firstly, I just want to say, the topic is not to demean or belittle any Hindu's opinion. I'm sincerely curious who else thinks this or that way. Even if you disagree or have a whole new theory, I'm curious to know. A person wrote, and I quote, "Ramayan happened millions of years ago." End quote. Which I actually agree with. Another wrote, and I quote, 5114 BC. God Ram birth year as per astrological calculation. End quote. I disagree with that theory, since Ramayan took place before Mahabharat, which itself is 5,000 years old. So Ram Ji could not have been born 5114 BC. Maurice Maeterlinck confirms in his book that Mahabharat is 4 to 5,000 years old. Jesus was born 2,000 years ago as of today. That means if Ram Ji was born 5114 BC, we come to a figure of 8,000 or so. Now, according to Christianity and Islam, Noah lived on earth for 950 years before he died. You can see that here. As you can see, both Islam and biblical scriptures state Noah to be 950 years old. Another thing to note is, the Bible clearly endorses the great floods and Noah, and I quote, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." End quote. Book of Genesis goes on further and states all life on earth was destroyed, and I quote, "I am going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens, every creature that has the breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish." End quote. Now, according to biblical scriptures, the entire earth was flooded 4,000 years ago. India was not flooded. We know this because the Bhagavad Gita and our scriptures survived. Amarnath cave temple in Kashmir is 5,000 years old. Bhagavad Gita is 5,000 years old. Now let's go back to the topic of Ramayan. My thoughts on the matter are as follows. Varhar is when Vishnu saved Bhumi when she submerged underwater. The landmass at that point was 1. There was no Europe, or various countries as we see today. By the time Ramayan had occurred, the landmass had divided. So Sri Lanka had now formed into an island by breaking away from India, as did other lands. Now, this process takes millions of years, not thousands. If Varhar carried Bhumi, it would have been impossible to have carried the earth in fragments, Italy in one hand, USA in another hand, Australia gripped by 2 fingers, etc. My other key points was, gomphotheres are larger than standard elephants. Ramayan describes 4-tusked creatures, 4 times bigger than a standard elephant, which were extinct 9,000 to 13,000 years ago. They belong to the Pleistocene species, which existed 2.6 million years ago. Now, let's assume Ramayan took place 5114 BC. Then why would the scripture mention 4-tusked elephants next to standard elephants? So, we can clearly see there are 2 types of elephants mentioned. When Ramayan occurred, 4-tusked giant elephants were roaming the earth. So my key points were, when Bhumi submerged underwater, the landmass was 1. By the time Ramayan begun, land mass had divided. Now, we know this because when Ravaran captured Lanka, he removed Kuberar from the kingdom, which describes Lanka surrounded by the ocean on all sides. So, I disagree with many of the comments, and most likely someone will think I am crazy. I also feel some Hindus find it difficult to explain how a figure like 1 million is possible. However, Ramayan clearly mentions 4-tusked elephants, which no longer exist, and no other religious book mentions such things. If these creatures became extinct 13,000 years ago, then Ram Ji cannot have been born 5114 BC. If we go by the 4 yugas, the dates match. Another interesting point is, Parashuram Ji is mentioned in Ramayan and Mahabharat, and he is considered a Shiran Ji, an immortal. He was born in Treta Yuga, the 2nd time cycle. Mahabharat took place in Dvapara Yuga, the third time cycle. Ramayan took place in the Treta Yuga, the second time cycle. And Hanumanji himself is from Treta Yuga, appears in Mahabharata, will also stay to the end in Kali Yuga. Considering all that in mind, I reject the 5114 BC date. And I firmly believe Ramayan is much older. There are many other references to extinct elephants within Vedic scriptures, for example in Mahabharata, Vishnu Puran, etc. Many will quote data for the Ram Setu Bridge, which has been carbon dated to around 7,000 to 18,000 years old. That also contradicts the 5114 BC date. Again, it also narrowly fits in with the four-tusked elephant scenario. These creatures became extinct 13,000 years ago. My personal view is, the original bridge was rebuilt, or layered over many times throughout history after the Ramayan period had ended. In Britain, a news article published in 2017. And I quote, "Archaeologists have found what they believe to be a 1.7 million year old bridge, which suggests that modern humans were around much longer than previously thought." End quote. Now, I find it astonishing that in Britain a 1.7 million year old bridge reaches the headlines, but in India they spew out dates like 5114 BC. Anyway, what are your thoughts?